When and how do you write the ending of your book? I had a question from Gary just a few minutes ago, asking me this, and he's like, when you get to the end of your first draft, how do you write the ending to it? Now, this applies to both the last chapter, the ending, and the opening chapter. And really it applies to fiction, nonfiction. You know, in nonfiction, you'll have an introduction usually. That's your opening chapter. And then you'll have, you know, a conclusion or whatever. Sometimes. Depends on the kind of nonfiction. But, you know, every novel, of course, has an opening chapter and, you know, the big climax end of the book. When do you write that and how do you write it? Okay. Here's how it usually works out for me. Okay. It doesn't usually come to me during the first draft. Now, maybe I have an idea of what the opening chapter will be, and possibly I write that during the first draft. And sometimes, you know, I'll have, you know, an ending in mind, some kind of idea of what the last chapter is going to be like. But for instance, my first novel, Anno Draconis, I did not decide on what was going to be the opening chapter until well into the editing stage. And I didn't write the final chapter, the big climax conclusion, until the book was almost polished. It wasn't quite polished, but it was. I was well into the editing stage before I finally had an idea or drew up the courage, actually, to let go and see what the characters would do in that final scene. I kind of had an idea, you know, what was going to happen there, I thought. But then one day I just sat down and said, okay, what would my characters do? How would my characters get into the situation? And then let's see what happens once they do. And so it wasn't until way deep into the editing stage that I actually wrote the final chapter of that novel. And when it comes to and decided on, and I think even wrote the beginning, the opening chapter. This is almost always the case when I do nonfiction. I never write the introduction until I'm done. You know, and usually have most of it polished and I know where it's going to go and what order every other chapter is going to be in. And then I'll write an introduction or I'll write the conclusion. A lot of times I'll write the conclusion first and then go back and write the introduction. It's messy. That's the short answer, is it's fucking messy. Okay. I just gave you the long answer. They're the most important chapters in any book, fiction or nonfiction. So don't be in a hurry to write them, I guess is also the medium answer. They will come to you. The characters will show you where they want to go and how they want to end it. Or as you're in the process of writing nonfiction, once you get through most of the editing, most of it, you'll have an idea of what you said, and then you can write a conclusion and an introduction. Hope that answers your questions. If not, let me know. And don't forget my 5-hour fuck on naked book writing boot camp. God, there's a lot to say. Why do I write titles so fucking long? There's a good question. It's open. Still some spots open, so grab them before they're gone. Links in my bio. Fuck on. Let's write your book.